Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is Monday, so we are getting on our mats. No props today, but you can grab a strap if you would like. We are going to stretch our quads. So today's focus, I'm just going to go through a couple of different stretches for your low back. So if you ever have suffered from low back pain, trying a couple of these options to see if we can get it to release. I will say if you have any major injuries to your back, please move mindfully through this practice. We're going to go ahead and just start in a seated position, whatever that means for you, just to kind of get ourselves settled and into our practice. I think it's always good to start with some breath work before we move deeper into our bodies. So find a comfortable seat, allow the spine to be long, soften your shoulders away from your ears, and we'll take a few breaths here. Just allowing a nice big inhale and exhale. Maybe breathing in for 4 or 5 and then exhaling for 5 or 6. So allowing the exhale to just be a little bit longer. Could also be the same length, but that just allows us to come out of that fight or flight, that kind of busybody space, and come into a more grounded place in our bodies and in our breath. So it just allows things to slow down. And you can use that breath work anytime, we take a deep breath to kind of calm ourselves, allow the inhale to be big, but then allow the exhale to be longer. Just take a little more time. That helps us to really soften and settle. We'll take one more deep breath. Good, and then we'll inhale both arms up. Interlace the fingers, press palms away, just stretching through those shoulders. And then exhale, let those arms release. This is Misty. Apparently she wants to play. So we're going to go ahead and come to hands and knees, so our tabletop position. And we're just going to start with some cat-cows. So I like this kind of first thing in the morning. It can be a little bit intense, but this is a really nice way to just roll through the spine. I definitely feel it. I feel it here. You could feel it anywhere though, wherever your body is kind of asking for a little bit of attention. So just rolling through the spine. So our cat-cow, the tailbone lifts, the belly hangs down, and our chest sinks through our shoulders as you gaze up. Then you tuck the tailbone, curling up like a cat, so arching that back, tuck your chin, press your palms into the floor. So we're really stretching through the back side of the body, and then you just reverse it. Allow the body to kind of hang open, stretching through the front side, and then curling up, arching up like a cat. Tuck that chin. It really gets all the way through the spine. And just moving with your breath. Excellent. All right, kind of come back to that tabletop position. So we're gonna take our knees a little bit wider. Bring your big toes together and shift your hips toward your heels for child's pose. So I also like child's pose as a great way to open up that low back. We're actually neutralizing the spine. So we're taking a lot of the curve out of it. And we try to, come to a place where we can rest our forehead. You can definitely set blocks or use your hands for a prop to allow your head to be supported. But really what we're finding is lengthening through that back side of the body. Again, we're kind of neutralizing that spine. And if your elbows are lifted, then it gets a little stretch into the shoulder. So that's always an option if you want to pop your elbows up off the ground, but you definitely don't have to. And you can soften the arms if that's a lot for your shoulders, even bringing arms to the side of the body. Again, the focus is on the hips sinking toward the heels and just finding length through that low back. Good. So that would be something else that we can do. So the next thing we're going to step into is a twist. We're going to come to our backs. I love twists for most things. So I really feel like it's important to, let's go down a little bit, to find rotation through the body. I think that it really opens up both the hip and the chest. So I really encourage people to do some gentle twists. So for a basic twist, we'll lift our hips up, shift them over to the right, and then place them back down. Lift the ankles up. So now I've shifted my body a little bit to the right so that my legs can fall to the left. This allows our spine to stay in a healthier place. It's a little more stacked than being at an angle. And then your arms can be wherever is comfortable. I like to place my left hand on top. If you have a lot of space either under the bottom leg or between the legs, put a pillow there, put a blanket, whatever, so that you feel supported, that you can just breathe into that twist. So I imagine that you could send your breath into those right ribs, and then it's going to kind of open up from these ribs down into that low back and a little bit into that hip. So this kind of J shape is where people tend to feel it. And so we're just taking that gentle twist, just holding it for a few breaths. And then we'll lift that top leg first, unwind, plant your feet, come back to center, just kind of take a breath, coming back into the center of your mat. And then we'll switch sides. So we'll lift our hips up, shift them over to the left this time, about an inch. We're not going super far. Ankles lift, and then the legs go to the right this time. And again, you may find that one direction is a little bit tighter or has more restrictions. That's perfectly normal. We are very asymmetrical beings as far as what our bodies can do. I take my hand to the top. Again, I'm not pulling. It's just there for a little bit of support. It just kind of gives a counterbalance to it. And then I'm breathing into those left ribs this time. And then, so we're opening up kind of left ribs down into that low back. Our QL is back here, down into the hip, and maybe around. So again, we're just hanging out, taking a gentle twist. We'll take one more breath here, and then leading with that top leg, unwind, coming back to center. So from this position, my hips are now back in the center of the mat. Take your feet as wide as your mat, and we're just going to take windshield wipers. So the first twist we did is a pretty intense twist. A gentler version is what I call windshield wipers. So my feet are as wide as my mat, and my feet are going to stay that wide. But I'm going to allow my knees to rotate from side to side. So that's going to internally rotate my right leg and externally rotate my left leg. And I'm just going to go back and forth. It doesn't matter how far you go. It can be little windshield wipers or big ones. But the idea is that you're just allowing the internal and external rotation at the hip. And that's going to actually give you a little bit of rotation to the pelvis and the low back. This is the one I recommend for a lot of my clients do first thing in the morning. Like you wake up, you're in bed, you can do this just to start to warm up the low back, to allow some of that connective tissue to open up and relax. As we build up what's called fuzz. It's like a little bit of stickiness in our connective tissue when we sleep. That's why when we wake up in the morning, we often feel a little bit stiff, but then as we move throughout the day, it gets better because we're finding that range of motion and it opens up that kind of and takes away that fuzz is what they call it. So we've got some nice windshield wipers, and we'll go ahead and come back to our neutral position. Take your left leg long and just hug your right knee in towards your chest. So this, while we're not actively, doesn't seem like we're actively stretching the low back, this stretch gets into our psoas muscle or iliopsoas, and that connects from our low back through the hips and around to the thigh or like inner groin area. So we are stretching some of the muscles that are implicated in low back pain, like some of the muscles that take part in that. So I'm hugging this right knee into my chest. Now, at the same time, if I bend this leg, then I'm not stretching the muscle. So I have to pull forward, but I also have to extend that left leg and that thigh long. So this thigh is trying to reach toward the floor. If I bend the leg, then I'm actually keeping the muscle short. And so I want to find length in it so that I can stretch it. And then we'll switch sides. So you can bring both knees in if that feels better, or take both legs long and just switch. So the right leg goes long. I'm hugging that left knee into my chest. I actually hug it a little bit wide. That feels better in my body. So you can hug it straight in. You can take it a little bit out to the side, whatever feels good. And again, if this right leg is bent, think about really trying to bring the thigh toward the floor and reach your heel toward the wall so that you're opening up. It's kind of a push and a pull. So we're going in different directions to try and open up that low back muscle. That's also a hip flexor muscle So, which means that it brings the knees toward you. So that engages it as you bring it in. Then maybe bring both knees and rock from side to side. That always feels really yummy. All right, what else? Okay, pigeon. So pigeon stretches the outer hips. I strongly believe in the connection between our outer hips and our low back. So there's two ways to do pigeon. So the first is taking our right ankle to our thigh and then bringing our knees toward our chest. I extend my arms around either side of the left leg. They can clasp behind the knee or in front of the shin. And then I'm going to bring my shoulders back toward the floor. If this part is not accessible, you can do it at a wall so that this foot is on a wall. So if you imagine that the brick is a wall, that would be, so the wall is there to support me so I don't have to use my upper body. You can also use a strap or a scarf around to kind of extend it, but do try to keep your shoulders as soft as you can. We're just breathing into that right outer hip. Sometimes I'll rock a little bit from side to side. You're more than welcome to play around with that just to see how it feels. It's going to change the stretch a little bit for you. So little micro movements I think are really healthy when we're exploring our deep stretches. So this gets the right outer hip. We'll take one more breath. And then let's go ahead and switch. So what we do to one side, we always do to the other. Even if only our right hip or our right low back is hurting, we're definitely still going to do both sides. So I'm bringing my left ankle to the thigh and I'm bringing it toward my chest. And I'm breathing into that. So now I'm feeling a stretch like right on the back side of this left hip. And again, you can kind of rock from side to side if that feels good. And you can definitely hold these stretches a little bit longer. And we're just holding them for a few breaths for this class. And we'll go ahead and release that. So that is the first way to do pigeon. It's a reclined pigeon. I actually prefer it for low back pain, but you can also do full pigeon, which comes from the right knee to the right wrist and then dropping this leg back. So this is going to open up the front of the thigh, which I think can also be really helpful. So this would be full pigeon, but sometimes this can put more compression on the low back. So if you do full pigeon, if you can drop it down, I think that that's good, but I'd actually prefer recline pigeon for low back pain. Just a personal preference, but definitely you can explore both options. So if we do one and then we come up to come out of it, I tuck my back toe, I lift my hips, and you can transition through a down dog, which also feels really yummy and neutralizes the spine. And then we'll switch so that the left knee goes toward the left wrist. And we come into the front of the right thigh. Again, feel free to prop. I didn't grab any props for today, but you can put a prop underneath that hip or under the back ankle. You can fold down if that feels good. So some really good choices there. And then we'll come out of it. We'll tuck the back toes. Maybe again, you take a down dog, kind of swaying hips from side to side. And then we'll drop down. The other thing that I would encourage people to do for even low back pain, but any pain in the body, I feel like we need a side stretch. So you can do it in a seated position, in a chair, on the floor, but place one hand to the side and then reach the other arm up and over. And as I do this, I'm not crunching down and losing the length of that right side. So think about lifting up and over. Think about a long line from the hip all the way up to the shoulder. And if it goes all the way to the fingertips, great. You can also bend the elbow though, if that's too much on the shoulder. But we're trying to find length through that side body because we have a lot of muscles that are on the side that, muscles that we use in order to crunch from shoulder to hip. So we use our core muscles, we use our QL. So we use these muscles to kind of compress, but we really want to make sure that we're finding length through that side body too. I'm also not allowing the hip to lift. I want to stay grounded or rooted through my left hip. And then I'll come up and drop it down. And then while opposite arm goes up, Take a little side stretch again from that right hip all the way up through that side body. So I'm sitting on my heels right now, but you can also do the same stretch just in a simple cross-legged position. Even a little bit deeper for me on this side. Just don't lose the integrity of the other side. Just breathing into that space. Excellent. Let's take a clean, cleansing breath. Inhale the arms up. Palms come together, hands to heart center. Let's do that one more time. Inhale, lift. Palms together, hands to heart center. Thank you guys for joining me today. Namaste.